Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to another Global VMR. Today is Brazil, and I'm so excited because it's my first Global VMR as a team member, and I'm so excited. I am Amanda, I'm from Brazil, and I am 6th-year medical student. Welcome, here is a safe space. And if you have any thoughts, any doubts, you can ask in the chat, and I will pass to Deborah.
Hi, everyone. We are so excited to be here representing our country today. And we have me, Amanda, Rafa, Marcella, and everyone. It's with the shirts. We have Robbie with a shirt too. So yeah, excited. And if anyone, we are going to present a case and then asking some questions. If anyone has questions from Brazil, can add in the chat. So yeah, I will pass for Marcella the mic.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marcela. I'm a doctor from Brazil. I live in Minas Gerais, one of the best states. We have great food, I have to say. I'm very excited to be here. Looking forward to the case and to talk more about Brazil with you all. And I pass the mic to Rafa.
Hi, friends. So my name is Rafael, and I'm also a medical doctor from Brazil, which is crazy for me because usually I start the session saying I'm a medical student, but it's been quite a while since I'm graduated. Super happy to be here and looking forward to discussing the case with to presenting the case with these incredible friends from Brazil. Also, if you have any questions about our country, please let us know. And I'll pass the mic to Maria.
Hi, friends. I'm super excited for this. We've been planning it for a while. With Deborah, we tried last year to have these global VMRs where we get to interview people from all over the world and talk a little bit about what's it like to live in that country, eat in that country, love in that country, and practice medicine in that country. I'm really excited to be starting this year with Brazil. I know we have a lot of friends from Brazil, and they've taught me so much about their country already. So I'm really excited for the session. I just wanted to share something really fast. I saw this on Instagram today, and I thought it was like a great reflection to start the day. It's from Anthony Bourdain, who was a chef, very famous chef and traveler. But for me, he's more of like a philosopher of life. So I was just reading one of these quotes, and I want to share it with you. Who wouldn't travel if they could? It's unthinkable to me. Who wouldn't want to enjoy different new sensations, especially when the world is filled with so much great stuff? I like new things. I like to feel good. I like learning about stuff. It makes me happy. I like being wrong about stuff. And I loved it because I hope that with this session, we get to learn more about how they practice medicine in Brazil. And somewhere deep down inside, you feel like, ooh, that's very different from what I do or what I'm used to. I hope that that feeling of something new, we get to experience it a lot throughout this session. So we're going to be having the case along with Robbie. Robbie, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yes, not only is my shirt in green and yellow, I don't know if you noticed the theme of this entire apartment. It's green, yellow, green, yellow. My favorite colors. In fact, I was born in Lebanon, and I had this obsession with the brightness of yellow and green, like that combo. And that is the only reason why I started to support Brazil in football, and in the US known as soccer, although I still don't know why. It grew to like an obsession, an absolute obsession. And to the point where when Brazil lost in the 1998 World Cup final to France, I was up all night crying. And that is actually my mom's favorite story to talk about me as a kid, is how I spent all night crying because Brazil lost 3-0, heartbreaking loss to France. And I'll never forget it. And so now, fast forward many, many, many years, it's incredible to be able to say, not only have I been to Brazil, a country of my childhood dreams, that I have so many friends who are from Brazil, and to feel welcome by them wearing the same shirt they are is an honor. And I'm really, really excited to, as Maria said, share this space, center it around this beautiful country, this beautiful people, and do it the way we know best, which is to sprinkle in some medicine, but talk about life. And without further ado, I'm told that we're all four hosts are going to present. I don't know who's presenting the first aliquot, but we'll pass the mic to you and jump right in.
So I will start. This was a patient that I attended in primary care, and it was a 38-year-old male complaint of blood in the stool 1 week ago. The patient refers melena, smelly stools, and 2 episodes of hematemesis associated with the symptoms. And he noticed an increased abdominal volume during the past 4 months. Mentioned non-intentional weight loss, about 5 kilograms in these 4 months.
Maria, she's got us off to a really intriguing start, but I actually, I'm really curious about a couple of things, not so much medically, but I'll just start off some questions for Amanda just to shed light on some cultural contexts and pass the mic to you. Amanda, what I'm really curious about is actually immediately when I heard a stool complaint, it made me actually really wonder how, what difficulties do you have as a student and as a soon-to-be doctor in getting an accurate history? I ask that because I think things often are taboo, meaning that they are hard to ask. In the United States, for example, it's hard to ask about poop. It's hard to ask about sexual history. It's hard to ask and challenging to ask about drug use. And I'm curious, how does this patient tell you all this easily, no problem, or is there a little bit of shyness, or how do you navigate that? And for this patient, and how does it happen in Brazil usually?
Actually, I don't know if there is me or my friends like Deborah, Marcela, and Rafa, but initially I create a safe space, in the communication. And when the patient related the symptoms, I just ask, in your stools, how there is, and you are evacuating much more or menos than usually, I think that safe space that I create, I don't have too much difficult to ask, but sometimes it's difficult, but I just ask in the living and safe and peace form, I don't know, I don't see as a taboo in my region. It's normal.
I love that. That makes a lot of sense to me. Thank you for sharing that. Maria, thoughts?
I love that reflection, Amanda, and I think it's really important to have the safe space. We try to do it here, but with our patients, it's so much harder, I think. And there's some interesting thoughts in the chat. Hans, I don't know if you can unmute your mic and talk about the problem representation you wrote and what you're thinking, and introducing yourself, of course.
Yes. My first thought when I saw bloody stools, but now it is a smelly melena stool, I thought about autoimmune at first, and then I thought about malignancy as well, but this is 38 years old. I wouldn't put it on top. And then, of course, coming from Brazil and probably being exposed to many different kinds of pathogens, including parasites, it is quite likely that he might have some infection that we need to find out. So that was just the first thought, nothing.
Thank you, Hans. I think, having the epidemiology of the age of the patient really differentiates helps us arrange the differential diagnosis in different order. I also wanted to see if Shema could unmute herself and introduce herself, because I think she had like a very interesting process of like targeting this as small bowel or large bowel that I hadn't thought of before. Shema, how are you?
She cannot unmute.
You can unmute. Okay, it's okay. Don't worry. But it's so nice to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, you're in the library. I'm so sorry. And Drew, I also see that you've also have a lot of thoughts in the chat. Do you want to unmute yourself and talk a little bit about it?
Sure. Hi. So we have a relatively young-ish man with melena for about a week, which, given the fact that it is melena that the blood's getting digested through, prioritizes a problem in the upper GI tract. So thinking about things like very slowly bleeding duodenal ulcer, peptic ulcer, and yes, youngish. It could also, if it's a very slow bleed, could also, since he is certainly old enough that this is becoming increasingly common, could also prioritize something like a cancer of either the upper GI tract or hell, even colon cancer. So the other, and then weight loss of 5 keys. Again, also right now if this were the US, I'd be thinking malignancy, but I'd want to get a couple more questions asked first. So one, alcohol use history, because that can easily help with figuring out whether or not we have to deal with something like esophageal varices. And two, whether or not there is what other like disease exposures there might be in terms of like foods eaten or whatnot, especially considering that we're in Brazil. I don't necessarily know if we have to deal with certain infections that might cause upper GI bleeding. So
I love that, Drew. Oh, sorry, Megan. No, go ahead.
No, thank you so much, Ruth. I think it was really fascinating what you were saying about colon cancer, because in Guatemala, I usually would never think of colon cancer, just as Hans was saying. I don't think of it as in like this population. And I know, colon cancer has so much to do with like diet habits and things like that. I wonder what you see in Brazil. If somebody wants to comment, Rafa, Amanda, Deborah, or Marcela, is colon cancer becoming like more prevalent in young people, or are you still seeing like older patients having colon cancer?
I think like you said, Maria, from Brazil, I wouldn't think as much in such a young patient, especially because we have so many like infections, or like you were mentioning before, other causes, like peptic ulcer or something related to that. So usually we think more when the patient is older, especially if we have like an old patient presenting with the bleeding. And we know that although we have the public healthcare system, not always the patient has access to screening. So that's another thing that we usually pay a lot of attention to see if the patient had a screening prior to that.
Thank you, Marcy. Ravi, you can go now.
I was just so, I think that the cultural context of this case is so interesting because one of which is we talked about the possible, Amanda gave us some insight on the possible taboos of talking about gastrointestinal symptoms. I'm also curious, maybe I'll ask Deborah just to hear her voice. Deborah, what is it like for young people to go seek care in Brazil? I'm really curious because in the US, you'll generally see that young people, say less than 50, don't like going to the doctor. Often they don't have a primary care doctor. So what is your experience with younger people? This is for you, Austin, who less than 50, who go to seek care?
That's a good question. Like, I think we don't see much young people like going for doctors and to the hospital. I can tell for my brother, he doesn't go at all. He never like take care of him. He's younger than me. But I think at the same time, we have like a generation that it's being more healthy and working out and taking care of the body. I think we have like, of course, in the public system, we don't have too much, but I think like in the private, maybe can be like we can see more people taking care of themselves, not with a disease or something, but like more to prevent. And of course, related, we're from Brazil. We are know from the plastic surgery, so I think we have a lot about that too in young people. But yeah, in general, I don't think young people go much. I don't know if I answer your question.
So helpful. We're getting some insight from a friend who I haven't met yet in the chat. I don't know if you saw this, Maria, but Emmet Saban, I'm not sure if you're able to unmute and tell us about what you were talking about with regards to sexual history. I can tell you're unmuted, but I don't hear your voice. I don't know if you're trying or... It seems like Emmett's unmuted, but I don't know if your mic is working. That's okay. Okay, if you can talk, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. It'd be really cool. Maria, maybe we should move on. So I'll just kind of summarize what people have said, and then maybe you can kick us off with reflecting on the next aliquot. I think it's fundamentally clear that there's an upper GI bleed going on here. At least that's the working hypothesis. And the most morbid cause of an upper GI bleed is varices. And so I think that even when you just think that and you see anything that suggests varices or portal hypertension, here the increased abdominal volume, that should be your operating hypothesis. And so just with this data alone, you're probably going to treat the patient for a variceal bleed until proven otherwise. And the big wrench in that thinking is that usually patients with portal hypertension get ascites, and the ascites causes them to gain weight. And the lack of weight gain here gives you some pause. However, patients with end-stage cirrhosis can definitely lose weight, as can patients with non-cirrhotic forms of portal hypertension like schistosomiasis. So it's something to really think about, especially in a patient who is from the land of the yellow and the green. Yeah, so really intrigued to see where this goes. All right, maybe we can hear about the next aliquot. Thank you, Amanda, for this juicy start.
Okay, so going for the next aliquot, the patient denied fever, nausea, vomiting, and don't have any past medical history, don't take any medication, denied any allergy. And from the family history, his mother has diabetes, and his father died from a stroke. He's a worker. He worked in a farmer. He reports that since he was a child, he goes to swim in lakes and rivers. He just drinks social, like in social occasions, and don't smoke. That's for all that information. Do you want the physical things? Do you wanna? Okay, I'm sorry.
Have you like I was wondering, have you split the aliquots in 4 and you want us to discuss a little bit about this? Okay, perfect. I think, as Aaron calls it, like the southwest corner, most of the times doesn't give us a lot of information, but I think there are some very interesting aspects here. I think one is what Drew is mentioning, that we don't have like any known past medical history, just as we were mentioning before, with young adults that and in rural populations, they may not have as much access to like screening or routine medical visits. And I think it's also very interesting that he works as a farmer and he swims in lakes and rivers. I know that Marce is very interested in rural healthcare in Brazil. I don't know if you want us to like share a story that you have about um, patients who work in the farming industry, because I know that you're very familiar with that. What's different with them?
Sure, Maria, thank you. So I can share a lot of histories, especially because my father is a farmer, so I know how difficult it is to take farmers to a hospital or to a doctor. So I think that's the first thing that's important to consider, is that probably he was feeling unwell, and he, for a while, and maybe due to access or like other social determinants of health, he didn't seek healthcare before. And you need to be concerned, because when they do seek healthcare, usually they can be very sick or delay diagnosis. And the other thing I think is the exposure. And another, you said it's good that he doesn't have any past medical history, but maybe he has and it's undiagnosed because he didn't have access to healthcare. And I think the other thing is a big exposure, because usually in a farm, you have a lot of different animals, and you need to be concerned from like poisoning from equipment or things that they use there, to animals and soil. So I think that's another important thing to consider.
I love it. Thank you, Marce. I think we're all familiar with like the stories of like rural healthcare where they go directly to like the crash car if they see a farmer coming in, just because it's very unusual for them to come in on like the earlier stages of the disease. So I think having your perspective and your experience in rural medicine is very invaluable here. I see a comment from Francisco Alexandrino, and I think we haven't met, but I was wondering if you could open your mic, introduce yourself, and tell us more about what you're thinking.
Hey, you can hear me? Good. So I'm a resident from Portugal, and I'll actually probably be moving very soon to the US. And we are having a lot of residents here in Portugal coming from Brazil, which is we are 100 residents and 5 of them are from Brazil. So it's very interesting. And even in primary care, we see a lot of Brazilian patients. So if you want to talk about that, we can dive deep into it. But thinking about this, it just triggered in my mind to think about protozoa, since they swim in lakes and rivers, and he has blood, and it's a bloody diarrhea, entamoeba. He has abdominal distension, and they have cysts in the liver. Yeah, and he lost weight. So I would think entamoeba, yeah. But usually it's described as the anchovy feces, right? So it's not very specific, I guess. But yeah, it's a thing to consider.
Thank you so much for sharing. I would have never guessed that you have a lot of Brazilians co-residents, and I think that's very interesting. Maybe we can talk a little bit more later on and like the differences in like language, even though they're both Portuguese, are so different. It always impresses me. And I think it's really interesting what you mentioned, because I think we all jump to that conclusion. The thinking fast process of having a patient who's from Brazil, who's a farmer, who has some certain exposures to lake water, and we're all thinking infection. And I think some sort of, and not only infection, but some sort of like funky infection. And I think it would be really interesting. We're going to see later on with more labs and the data if we are, we are correct to have that assumption, or is this just like a red herring? But it is very difficult to move past that thinking fast process. So just recognizing it, I think, is very valuable. Robbie, what do you think?
Well, I'm very, very curious about farming in Brazil. I'm really curious, Marcela, if you tell us your dad is a farmer. What is the predominant agriculture in Brazil? Is it what do people farm?
Oh, I think it depends a lot on the region, but
Yeah.
here in Minas Gerais, it's usually corn, sugarcane, and soy. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. And what is this? Is there like a predominance in farm animals too?
The place that I live right now, Beraba, it's known as like cattle city. We
Okay,
have a
gotcha.
lot of cattle and cows, and it's something very common here. We have even a kind of a party in May that people come from all over the world to see the cows here. It's very
Really?
nice.
Wait, there's a
Yeah.
cow party?
Yeah, kind of a cow party. We have a big place here that the cows they are exposed and people come here to
Oh.
buy them. So
Oh,
it's a
I
huge deal
see.
here.
That's
It's
so
a huge
cool.
deal.
Wow, look at that. Hey, Rafa, what is your I missed your voice. I feel like I need to hear it. What is I know you're in a very different region. Is the farming concept something that you grew up around, or was it very far from you?
Oh, it was actually a little bit far because my grandparents are involved in farming, but my parents, no,
I
like
see.
they moved to a bigger city,
I see. I understand. And is that is farming, does it tend to be familial, meaning that it just goes down from generation to generation? Is that the theme or the vibe? Okay, gotcha. That's really, really cool. Yeah, well, this aliquot just makes me really jealous because I've been living in cities all my life, but I always daydream about like retiring on a farm with my dog and swimming in lakes and rivers. Of course, this is probably the worst context to say that because we all, I think, are suspecting that this is resulting in disease for this person. But swimming in lakes and rivers is a lot of fun. And I agree. I think when you get this history, you really have to worry about schistosomiasis because the probability of non-cirrhotic portal hypertension causing a variceal bleed is high. I love Francisco's thought about Entamoeba histolytica and other parasites. You would definitely connect the dots in that manner too. But common things being common, I think the real tension is the abdominal distension more solid from the liver or more liquid from ascites? And if you play in all comers, I think you probably find more liquid than more solid, but I don't know that for sure. But it's definitely open to both possibilities. All right, let's go for round 3.
Okay, now it's my turn. So let's go for the physical exam. The patient was afebrile. His heart rate was 80. Blood pressure 110 over 80. Respiratory rate was 18. Saturation 98%. So for his general appearance, he was pale and dehydrated. His cardiovascular exam and pulmonary exam was normal. They were normal. And his abdominal exam, it was painful to palpation. He had abdominal distension, and he had a physical exam suggestive of ascites with some collateral circulation and some hepatosplenomegaly. And that's the end of this aliquot.
Robbie, I think, a mandatory question here, just because I know that you love spleen. How do you even call spleen in Portuguese? Like, I think I should know this, but I don't.
Baço.
Oh, it's the same as in Spanish, baso.
Yes.
Okay.
Miss Maria, I see that you're wiping away your sniffles. I'm really sorry that you're still under the weather.
No, I'm so sorry for it.
No,
So
no,
apologize
no,
to
no,
everyone.
no worries at all. Before we dissect this exam, I just saw a comment in the chat that I think it was, oh, where is it? Where is it? It was Laura. Laura, I don't know if you are able to unmute and tell us more about horses. That was so interesting.
Okay, so in my region of Brazil, in Minas Gerais, it's very common to have cavalgadas. They are like these big events where farmers reunite and they ride horses together.
Wow.
And they also sell horses, and usually we have bands that play in the evenings, and usually these cavalgadas happen in small cities.
Oh,
So
cool.
there are these big events in small cities, so people really, they do the makeup for the music shows. It's like the big event.
That's so cool. While you're here, Marcella is wondering where you're from, which part of Minas. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself since you're here?
Okay, so I'm 24. I'm a medical student in Universidade Estadual de Montes Claros. I live in Montes Claros, but actually I'm from Brasilia, the capital of Brazil.
Oh, cool, amazing. And what do you like to do for fun? What is your life outside of medicine?
Okay, I love doing Pilates.
Cool.
And actually I'm a director in the Atlética, the Brazilian, going to understand that, which is the athletic association of the medical students, and I play basketball.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. That is so cool. Thank you for sharing all that. It's really nice to meet you. Thank you for joining us today and for telling us about you and about all the things around you. And it looks like Amanda might be your next door neighbor based on how happy she is. You should check the chat out. Okay, medically speaking, I actually have a challenge question for all of you, those of you listening on YouTube and those of you here, because this actually brings up one of my favorite things in clinical reasoning. Okay, you ready? So I'm going to give you 30 seconds or a minute to try to tell me what you think is the most important pertinent negative. Okay, pertinent negative, because all of us are running to the positives, right? They're all shiny and glittery, but the pertinent negatives tell you just as much about the case. So from a diagnostic perspective, please put in the chat what you think is the most important pertinent negative. Okay, keep going. 30 seconds. We'll wait. Y'all, you nailed it. There is marked evidence of portal hypertension as suggested by abdominal distension, collateral circulation, and a big spleen. But there is no evidence of the liver being problematic at all. There's no jaundice. There's no evidence of hyperestrogenism with gynecomastia, palmoerythema, spider angiomas. We don't know if there's a testicular exam, but testicular atrophy would be another thing. So we're seeing so much portal hypertension, but no evidence of cirrhosis. So I think that is a very powerful thing, and I think that fundamentally means that we're probably dealing with non-cirrhotic portal hypertension. Thoughts, Maria? Anything that you wanted to reflect on or share?
No, I actually said no fever, and I am glad that I was wrong because I learned something new.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you.
Of course. Yeah, I think the key question now is how do we approach non-cirrhotic portal hypertension? And there's a schema on the CPSolvers website for that. But I'm curious what it looks like. Maria, we're going to time this such that we can actually get a decent breathing room for final questions and teaching points. So I'll pass the mic to I know who it is, the one and only Rafa, for the last aliquot.
Yeah, so for the labs, hemoglobin was 9. The white blood cell count was 3,000. Platelets, 86. Alk Phos was 40. AST, 35. ALT, 38. And to help you guys a little bit more, when it comes to the differential, this patient has 54% lymphocytes and 14% of eosinophils. And the next aliquot will reveal the final diagnosis.
Wallace, tell us more about the platelets, please.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, I've been on rounds many times when I was, earlier in medical school. I didn't understand why we were discussing someone with a possible diagnosis of cirrhosis or at least a compromised liver function. And then the attending would ask about, or would just say that it wasn't cirrhosis because there was no low platelets, right? So platelets were normal because the first laboratory alteration of cirrhosis is low platelets because of 2 reasons. Because the liver is responsible for producing thrombopoietin, which is necessary to the bone marrow to produce platelets, and also because of hypersplenism. So the spleen breaks more platelets. So those are 2 reasons. And this patient we were thinking about, but of course we lack other signs of cirrhosis, but we have the first lab alteration. Regarding a diagnosis, that is really hard to tell without a liver biopsy. That is definitely not always done, right?
Absolutely superb, my friend. I couldn't agree more. You gave us both the most accurate information about platelets and cirrhosis, and also the 2 mechanisms why, which is awesome. Give us an update on where you are now in your training. It's been a while since I've seen you.
Sorry.
Wallace, give us an update on where are you in your training now?
Oh, okay. So I am about to graduate. So I'm gonna graduate in July.
Woo!
And yeah, and I am preparing my things to do my clerkships in the States. So
Amazing.
looking forward. Yeah.
And where do you already have a rotation yet, or are you working on it?
From the beginning of April until the end of May, I'm gonna be at Mayo Clinic in Phoenix.
Oh,
Scottsdale.
cool.
Yeah, and I will rotate in the cardiovascular disease
Cool.
department.
That's awesome.
And then but for now is it.
Amazing. Bring a lot of sunscreen, okay? Phoenix is very hot and sunny.
Yeah, I've been told, it's really hard. You leave Brazil and people tell you that probably it's gonna be hotter or even warmer than in Brazil, and then oh my God.
I think so. Well,
Yeah.
if you ever make your way up to San Francisco, you please let me know. I'd love to get to know you in person. It would be
Okay, thanks so much. I will.
Yeah, absolutely. Maria, where's your head at with this?
I think we, like at the beginning, we are always like, you don't know what's going to be a red herring, right? And I think it's really important to have like an open mind and like be, this sounds like infection, this sounds like funky infection, he has a risk factors for it. And I think, it was really like throughout the case, I loved how, we've been reinforcing that this is not like your typical case of cirrhosis and portal hypertension. And you see that through like the the HPI, where we were like, he's been losing weight, and that's not like the most common thing that happens when people have ascites. And then, the southwest corner, he has these really different risk factors from like our normal patient. And then in the vital signs, we were expecting something that it didn't happen. And I think that just, has been like a good reinforcement that we were on the right track, and we weren't thinking funky infection just because people are wearing like a yellow shirt. Although, it's nice to have that case. And now that we have like the CBC, I think it's like the most interesting thing were the percentage of eosinophiles, which is something that I am not used to seeing ever. So with that, like, I can definitely say that I think, we were right from the start, but I just wanted the confirmation that we weren't thinking funky stuff just because, but we actually have like the data to support it.
That is such a marvelous overview of how we got here, presuming that we're not wildly off track. But I think Larissa is making a really important teaching point about a little bit of nuance about schistosomiasis. Larissa, are you able to unmute and just tell us about chronic schistosomiasis? And just let me know in the chat if you can unmute. Oh, no, there you go. Go for it, please.
Hi, good afternoon. Firstly, I'm Brazilian too, so I'm sorry if my pronunciation is not good at all. And please, if you don't understand, please correct me. And so, schistosomiasis can lead to affect the liver, so maybe lead to cirrhosis.
Yeah. I think that first of all, it's so nice to hear your voice, and thank you for being bold and brave. I know it's very hard to speak in a language that is not your first. And if this was a conference in Portuguese, I would probably never unmute. So I'm really impressed by those who are very brave to say that. Thank you, Larissa. Can you tell us where in Brazil you're from?
I'm from Alagoas. It's in Northeast.
Northeast. Amazing.
Yes.
And what is your role in medicine?
Here in Brazil, it's kind of different. We have 6 years of graduation.
Yes.
And I'm starting the third year.
Third year. Okay, halfway through. Amazing. That's
Yes.
wonderful. Well, welcome to the VMR community. We're very, very glad to have you, and hope we'll see you in your 4th, 5th, 6th, and 100th year in medicine. Thank you. And yes, your medical point is true. Patients with schistosomiasis have initially a predominant prehepatic portal hypertension, but eventually the liver also becomes dysfunctional in 2 ways. One, it can actually cause parenchymal cirrhosis, but also, as Shema was saying, you can actually get biliary obstruction from portal biliopathy. The portal vein becomes so dilated and forms collaterals, and those collaterals compress on the biliary tract. So yeah, that was a really, really good point. Okay, I know we wanted to leave some time for reflection and for the teaching points. So I will hand the mic to you all to tell us the case conclusion, and then to Maria afterwards to guide us through reflecting on this awesome global VMR.
It's Rafa.
Please go ahead. Rabi is gonna mute me.
Okay. So we have indirect immunofluorescence to schistosoma that was positive, and we have IgM positive to schistosoma mansoni, and catocars exam positive too. So the final diagnosis, schistosomiasis. like we say in Portuguese, esquistostomose. Esquistostomose, and this is the final diagnosis. Is not in my region, especially Minas Gerais. It's very, very, very common. In primary care, in my rotation, I attended about 5 cases with schistosomias. It's very, very, very common.
Amanda, I loved it. Schistosomiasis. Like, I'll never be able to pronounce it. I'm so sorry for butchering that. I've actually never seen a case of schistosomiasis. It's not part of Guatemalan risk factors, so I've never seen one. Thank you so much for bringing it here. I love learning about it. I learned so much. We're gonna do very fast teaching points, and then we're gonna go right ahead. Please, if anybody has questions for Rafa, Amanda, Deborah, Marce, and other friends from Brazil, like Larissa, Laura, and Wallace, go ahead and put it in the chat, and we'll take a look at after teaching points.
All right, I'll try to make it brief. Thank you so much, Team Brazil. It was a very enriching case, and we really enjoyed learning about your country and about the case. So this was a patient who presented with small stools and upper GI bleeding. And in this case, it's important to consider the geographical area and the epidemiology and the patient's occupation. But also, as Maria said, we have to keep an open mind and not anchor infectious causes whenever someone is like from Morocco or Brazil or other countries. We localized the bleeding to the upper GI since it was melena, and the most common and morbid causes of upper GI is variceal bleeding due to portal hypertension that could be either cirrhotic or non-cirrhotic. We kind of were comfortable to rule out cirrhotic causes since we didn't have other stigmata of cirrhosis until we saw the platelets, and Wallace taught us that the low platelets are very suggestive of cirrhosis because of spleen sequestration and the lack of the thrombopoietin. But then we were brought back to non-cirrhotic causes when we finally found the results, and it was schistosomiasis, and it is the most common infectious cause of non-cirrhotic portal hypertension. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, Maima, thank you so much for those teaching points. I really like them. They were so short and sweet. So now I'm going to start the Q&A. We're going to do really fast to be conscious about everybody's time. And, you know, the first question that I like to ask, just because I really love food, this is up for anybody if they want to mention it. What is I'll say when, not if, because it's in my plans. When I visit Brazil, what is definitely a food that I couldn't miss out on?
You need to eat pão de queijo. I will have, from Minas Gerais, I will have to advocate for pão de queijo. Do you agree, Amanda?
Totally. Pão de queijo, cheese, mineiro cheese. Oh my God, you need to eat.
You also need to eat our barbecue.
It's totally different. They're normal. Our barbecue, it's beautiful and delicious.
Okay, wait. You have to explain what is different.
Everything. First, it's an event here, and it's a totally party with the barbecue, the meats. There is farofa, vinagrete. Here in the US, don't exist this.
I love it. Like I always mention it, you know, as Latino people, just like the sheer quantity of food. Last weekend, I only ate, like the only thing I did throughout Saturday was eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that took my entire day. So I couldn't do a single thing other than eat and be around friends for the entire day. I was also wondering, you know, Wallace, you mentioned that the best thing about Brazil is its people. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, you know, I think that this is something that, you know, I will apply for residency match in the States. And I think definitely this is this is gonna be the thing that I'm gonna miss the most, because here in Brazil, people are so spontaneous, and everybody's so welcoming, and then you feel, you can feel the warmth. People are very and this, and also this is something that I think that I'm gonna struggle. I think that everybody that goes abroad for the first time, they struggle a little bit with interaction, because here in Brazil, there is no short communication. There is no half words. We just talk and talk, and then everything is explained, and people from other countries, I've been told that they can, just answer what you asked, and nothing more. And then here in Brazil, this is so different.
I love that, Wallace. I think that is something that is very admirable, and I think we've seen it throughout like the years on CPSolvers with all of the people in the team who are from Brazil, how spontaneous and vivacious and like outspoken they are. I think it's like an admirable quality that I definitely want to learn from them. And I know that there's a lot of physicians in Brazil who travel abroad for residency training, whether it's like the US or, Portuguese, as Francisco was telling us. And I wanted to ask Rafa and Marce, because I know that you've had experience in like US rotations. What is one thing that everybody as physicians could learn from Brazilian physicians to be better doctors?
Rafa, do you want to start? I can start.
No, I think one of the things would be communication with their patients, right? Because we're so open, and we try to be to understand the struggles that these patients may be having. So sometimes we just don't rely on only doing physical exam, getting imaging and labs done, but make sure we can know our patients very well as a person in on itself, not just someone coming with a disease, not looking only for disease, but the patient as a whole. I think this is something people could learn from us. I don't know, Marcel.
Yeah, first I would say that's a difficult question, but I was thinking I totally agree with Rafa in terms of like communication. I think Brazilians, they are very good with communication. And something that I also like to say is maybe get some inspiration from our public healthcare system, because I think we have a huge and large public healthcare system. Although we face a lot of trouble sometimes and we have some difficult times, I think we also have a lot of great things happening in the public healthcare system for our population. And I think it would be a good thing to share. I know, for example, in our primary care, some countries got some examples from the things that we do here. So I think that's something that it's worth to take a look.
Thank you so much. I love that reflection. And Marcia, I know that you're very interested in like public health and rural health, and I can't wait to like follow both of your journeys. Hopefully we'll have good news in the next couple of weeks, and then we can like have deeper conversations on this as you experience that abroad. And I know that Deborah, she's also from Brazil, and she's studying in another Latin country, which is Argentina. And I know that, for Brazil, I think it's quite unique, the mixture of cultures and languages and things. They're Latinos, but they speak Portuguese. They have like such a different culture from the rest of like the South American countries. Deborah, what is like a difference or something quirky you've seen as a Brazilian studying medicine in Argentina?
Yeah, I think Wallace was talking about the people. I don't live in Brazil, has 7 years, and sometimes the only thing that I want to do is get in an airplane and listen the pilot say, "What, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Brazil," because I really miss the people. I really miss how we are. We are super friendly. Like, even if we have a lot of problems, we are smiling if the things are not going well in our country. So I think that's a thing from Brazil. And doing like comparing here from Argentina, I really like, we talk about our food, we have really good songs too. I really like Brazilian songs. We have like all types. It's really diverse. If you want something more calm, we have something calm. If you want something more carnival, we have to. Ai, se eu te pego, yes, we have that one. And I think that's it. And yeah, the food too, it's amazing. I don't know what else. Anyone?
That is so interesting. And I think, the Brazilian music, it definitely like is part of like Latino culture, and still like I'm looking at Francisco right now and I'm thinking, when I was in Europe, like Brazilian songs would play all over. And I actually wanted to ask Francisco, because he mentioned that he has friends from Brazil and patients from Brazil. Is there anything that has, been interesting or you've learned from your residents from Brazil that has made you a better doctor that you want to share here today?
Yeah, sure. I haven't had yet a really connection with my Brazilian co-residents because I started just my first year as a resident in January, so I haven't had the chance to meet them. One thing I noticed is that they are much older. Those 5 co-residents, they are around 30 years old. So I would really like to ask them more about their journey to know what really made them go to Portugal. And I don't know if the Brazilians that are here have ever considered coming to Portugal, besides the US, of course. But in terms of patient care, we see a lot of Brazilians. They are super fun. They are super easy. They do everything, I guess, we tell them. They really respect us, and we have really fun clinic time. We just chat about everything, and yeah, I love the Brazilians. That's why I'm here. This is my first time here in the CPS community. So yeah, I'm having a good time.
Ooh, welcome. Hopefully you'll stay more and we can learn from you in other occasions. Rafa, do you want to take that question? What's it like and why people are migrating? What's happening? Have you considered Portugal? And I know that time moves different for IMGs. What's happening? Why are they older?
I'm not exactly sure why people want to go to Europe. Most of the people who want to work outside of Brazil, they usually go to the USA. I feel like one of the biggest reasons, at least for me, was because I feel like in Brazil, medical education is not very well established. And this is something that I'm really interested in. In the US, we have these programs with established pathways for medical education. You also have more opportunities when it comes to growing as a clinician educator. So, but there are several different reasons why people want to move. So I guess for me, it was one of the biggest reasons.
Thank you so much, Rafa. I'll plug in a couple of things from Guatemala, because in Guatemala, a lot of people migrate to the US, but Europe is becoming like more and more popular. And I think, the time that maybe that's why you're seeing like older residents with you is that it takes so much time to prepare for tests that don't happen in your country, for example, or for your title to be validated in other countries. And so, for example, in most of Latin America, medicine is 6 years, plus minus a couple of years in like rural places. And then once you've graduated like at 24, 25 years old, then your journey begins to start basically from scratch in another place. So it definitely takes a couple of time, but I think something I've learned with these global VMRs is how time and space is this like philosophical construct that just doesn't exist anymore. It's really funny when I think that we've been doing VMRs for like 3 years now and everything's changed and that everything stays the same. So I think that's interesting, but I agree, there's a lot of wisdom that comes with that change of plans that is so big, and we've had other VMRs where we talk about those transitions, those big transitions. I'm not sure if anybody has another question. Robbie, do you have a question for our Brazilian friends before we wrap it up?
No, I don't have any questions. I get to hang out with these guys all the time that I feel like anytime I do have a question, I just text them right away, But I love what you said about space and time got me giggling because of course we're always running late because time is an arbitrary concept, right? I think that's amazing that we glide through the session. And for me, I'm sitting here the last hour thinking it's kind of crazy that this is happening. And in many ways, it's not really that crazy. It's just an internet connection and some simple software that's bringing all these people together. But if you think about, I don't know, if you think about maybe human tendency or at a bare minimum or what's happening to the world, it's so easy for people to snap at each other and for people to move away from each other. And I think that if you listen to the news or you open your window, that's what you hear, like somebody arguing, somebody honking the horn at somebody. And there's so much tension and anger and separation in the world. And yet all of us here are in a profession where, at least on the surface, that's not what happens. We're supposed to be very inviting and supposed to welcome patients and take care of them and have our doors open and really just like be in service of our patient. But we all know that's not true. We all know that our profession has tremendous amount of problems and tremendous barriers for patients to come seek care. And the gold standard that we uphold for ourselves of being welcoming, open, without judgment doesn't exist. But I feel like I finally found a place where it has consistently and uniformly existed without exception for 3 years. And that's right here with you all. I'm sure that there have been the occasional lapses, but I think over 95, maybe even 99.99%, this space is a space of curiosity, of awe, of friendship, of welcome, of knowledge, of intrigue, of compassion, of love, of all the wonderful things in this world. And it's so cool. So for those of you who make the time to come here, I'm really, really grateful for it. I'm really grateful for people who watch this and consume this content on YouTube for sure. But I think it's that extra step of making time and forcing time to be here, because this community doesn't exist without all the people physically here, Maria, in this artificial space. So thank you, really. We learned a lot. We learned a lot about Schisto. We learned a lot about bleeding, but we learned a lot about the things that keep our friends in Brazil gelled together and keep them wearing the colors of the yellow and the green. But I think we're also learning of what it's like to be in community with each other, like purely in community with each other. So thank you all. I had a wonderful time and I hope you all did. And I'm really, really excited for the next version of this, which is our friends from Pakistan, a country that I spent 15 years in. So really, really excited for that.
Thank you, everyone, for
Bye.
coming. We'll see each other another time.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao.